You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com. Yes, and welcome one and all to the Mike Riley Now podcast. I am your host, Mike Riley. Welcome. It is Thursday, November the 3rd, 2016. We are, 5 days away from the election. Only 5 more days until we all go out and vote for a new president. And we have a new president.
Well, some of us can.
Yeah, some of us can. Yeah, my fault. I keep forgetting we have a little bit of an age gap going on over there. But that brings me to my next point. I have my lovely co-host here, my girls, Charlie, Sandy, and Cameron Robson in the house. Say hello, ladies.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
And we have our lovely co-host, Brooke, over there in the corner who can't talk because she lost her voice. So we're going to say hi for her. So yeah, welcome to the Mike Riley Now podcast. Please make sure that you follow us on the Facebook, Twitter, and the Instagrams and all the social media stuff by visiting MikeRileyNow.com. Definitely want to shout out all of my new subscribers. We've been getting a lot of good feedback from the show, so definitely want to say thank you to everybody who's been tuning in. And and tell all your friends to subscribe too, and make sure that they leave reviews on iTunes. I guess that's a pretty big deal. So welcome to our voting episode of the Mike Riley Now podcast. I say that because next Tuesday is a very, 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 very big day. It's a BFD, as Joe Biden would say. Yeah, right. A very, very big BFD. And I don't know, man. I'm really nervous.
I'm freaking terrified. I can't even begin to explain how terrified I am about this.
I mean, I'm just being serious. I don't think I've ever been this petrified. Not petrified, but nervous about the outcome of an election. And I'm pretty nervous. I know elections have consequences, but this one's really got me kind of shaking in my boots a little bit. I mean, Donald Trump could honestly become president, especially after all of this, since the last time we all met each other last week. So much has happened. This thing that happened with James Comey, the FBI director, how he came out out of nowhere and said, we found some emails that Hillary Clinton's aide was sending to Hillary Clinton, so we're going to investigate her computer and indict Hillary, and reopen the investigation, which pretty much put a monkey wrench in the entire, right there in the operation.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of jeopardizing things. And this is getting pretty serious. And I'll tell you what, as far as I'm concerned, the people that are voting for Hillary Clinton and knew they were voting for Hillary Clinton from 21 Jump Street are still going to vote. Yeah. They're not switching sides just because of some emails.
Well, I mean, they're the only side you can switch to is Donald Trump. Oh.
Thank you,
Cameron. Or someone who asks, what's Aleppo? So there's not exactly.
It's no.
Exactly. And, on the flip side of that, the same thing with Donald Trump supporters, right? I mean, if you're voting for Donald Trump, you're pretty much voting for Donald Trump. You got that one in the bag.
Yeah. And we've proven that nothing he says, even if he's trying to say something bad, it will not sway them.
No. I think he said it best, right? Charlie, he said, if I can stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody?
Yeah, and people my voting will go up.
Right, literally. I mean, he really thinks he's the Teflon Don. And it's just the ones who are, excuse me, the ones who are in between, right? These swing voters, these ones who are saying that I don't really know who to vote for, or
I'm not going to vote.
Exactly. The ones who are going to stay home. And let's talk about voting. Let's talk about this for a second, because in my opinion, not even in my opinion, this is actually the truth. If you were to survey the entire country and kind of look at the majority of the citizens in this nation, most of them think on a progressive level, meaning most of them believe in an egalitarian kind of society where, people have equal rights. Women have access to, equal pay, where people have access to health care, where, people aren't discriminated against, where everybody has a chance. Most people believe in that. They believe in clean air and clean water. They believe in the commons. They believe in things that kind of go against a lot of conservative principles. The problem is most people don't vote. Most progressives don't vote at all. Our last election in 2014, which was a midterm election, which a lot of people don't know about, only 36.2% of the electorate voted. 36%. This is a country with 333 million people in it. Of that, most of us are voting age. And only 36. How can you get any type of statistic from 36%?
That's appalling too. I mean, as Cameron and I, we can't vote. And thinking of how much that we wish we could in this election be able to make a difference. And the thought that there are people out there that have that ability to put their vote and their voice where it matters, and that they're not doing it is... I honestly, I don't really know how to articulate.
It's almost kind of like... and it's kind of like a double-edged sword a little bit. Because there's one side of it where, it is insulting. It pisses me off when I hear people say that they're just not going to vote. I was talking to a friend of mine just last night, and she was complaining. She was complaining about the drug prices in California. Or, how come the drug prices out here are so high? How come it's so hard for me to get prescription drugs and pay a decent price? I'm like, well, you can go out and vote yes on Prop 61. That will change that entire thing. But no. There's still nothing pushing her to go vote. Now let's talk about now why do people refuse to vote? Why don't people vote? Why? Okay, well, and like I said, there is a double-edged sword to it, right? One half is that people don't want to. People feel like their vote doesn't matter. People feel like it doesn't count. People feel like a lot of people don't want to be a part of the establishment, so to speak. In other words, they've been conditioned to believe that government is bad and anything within government is bad and all this stuff. And then there's the other side of it, right? There's the other side of it, which is people, it's hard for people to vote. It's difficult for people to get out there and cast their ballot. For one, there's just voter suppression that takes place that's still rampant all throughout this nation.
Absolutely.
There are still voter ID laws. I mean, look what's going on in North Carolina. Look at the things like the fact that ex-felons can't vote in so many states and places like Florida. If you've ever been convicted of a felony, you can't vote, which is mostly African American men, by the way.
That's so stupid. It's just like
it's ridiculous.
Like, why? Why does their voice count any less? Sure, maybe they made a mistake, or maybe they weren't even convicted for the right crime. Like, why does that make them any less human?
Why does that make them any less of a citizen?
Yeah,
what you're revoking their
voice.
You're revoking the rights that they're given as a person born in the United States of America. And the second that you start taking away the right to vote, there's no limit on what else you can take away as their rights as a natural born citizen.
Literally. And that's where it starts, right? It starts with taking away their right to vote. Taking somebody's right to vote is a big fucking right to take away.
It's their voice.
That's a huge thing. That is your voice. I mean, think about when this republic first started. Think about who was allowed to vote. I wasn't allowed to vote.
I wasn't allowed to vote.
Yeah, Charlie and Cameron damn sure weren't allowed to vote. They didn't. I had the right to vote before they did.
Yeah.
But it's interesting if you look at it. The people that are taking away the right to vote for people that actually have the right to vote are the ones that don't actually legally have the right to vote. Is there an amendment that says that the big honchos, what tend to be the white males, have a right to vote? You know
what's funny, Cameron? It's funny that you mentioned that. Nowhere in our Constitution does it say anybody has the right to vote. It gives African American. The 14th Amendment gives African American men,
and then it gives women the right to vote. There's nothing that says that white
men can vote.
Have the right to vote.
It's just been assumed that they can because in history they've been allowed everything.
These people that don't have the right to vote, that are given the privilege to vote, are taking away the right from other people.
Exactly. And then let's talk about the complications that come with voting in the first place, right? I mean, John Oliver did a really, really good segment on this.
No, I saw it. It was brilliant.
This last Sunday about why is voting still on a Tuesday. Most people don't even know why we vote on a Tuesday. Why do we vote on a damn Tuesday? And how come our election days can't be national holidays? It's funny, in Puerto Rico, election day is a holiday. And it's, Puerto Rico votes in American elections. Because they're an American, practically a state. They need to become a state already. They need to become
a state, seriously.
Yeah, that's kind of...
We fixed Puerto Rican debt crisis.
Yeah, that's kind of old school now. But why is it that voting has to become such a complicated thing? I mean, most people don't even know their voting rights. Like in the state of California, you're legally allowed to take 2 hours off of work to go vote. These are 2 paid hours that your employer has to grant you to go vote. So there's a lot of voter reform that needs to take place. And I'm going to play this clip here from Barack Obama where he kind of explains, he was doing this speech and he kind of explains, the BS that a lot of the GOP tries to kick around when it comes to their voter suppression. Like the need for a voter ID or something along those lines. Take a listen to this. Hold on.
And then they try to justify it by telling folks that voter fraud is rampant. Between 2000 and 2012, there were 10 cases of voter impersonation nationwide. 10. People don't get up and say, I'm going to impersonate somebody and go vote. They don't do that.
I mean, literally. I mean, voter fraud is such a non-existent crime. The fact that the GOP pushes for it to prevent it so much just goes to show you. How do we deal with this level of low voting? Because that, voting is so important. If when people don't vote in large numbers, bad people get elected.
Yeah.
Simple fact. That's why it's so important. So what do we do about this? In Australia, they have what's called compulsory voting, right? Compulsory voting it means it's mandatory. You have to vote. It's the law. It's your civic duty. It's like paying taxes, serving on a jury, fighting in a war if you have to.
It's not a right, it's a requirement.
It's not a right, it's a requirement. And if it were up to me, that's the way it would be here in the United States. People would have to go vote because that's how important it is.
I agree. In a government run by the people, for the people.
In a democracy.
It
doesn't work.
It doesn't work unless the people are involved.
Exactly.
And if you're completely absent from this, then the whole entire system is pointless. It's utterly unusable. And I can't imagine that anyone would think that their vote doesn't matter when we've had historical proof that votes are crucial in an election. Look at our would-be president.
Look, exactly. And if your vote didn't matter, if that were the case, they wouldn't be trying so hard to keep you from doing it. If votes didn't matter, then from the beginning of time, everybody would have been able to vote.
If it didn't give you power.
Right. I'm going to play one more clip here from Barack Obama while we still got time, where he talks about the importance of voting. Check this out.
Then we also have to acknowledge that even if we eliminated every restriction on voting, we would still have one of the lowest voting rates among free peoples. That's not good. That is on us. And I am reminded of all those folks who had to count bubbles in a bar of soap, beaten trying to register voters in Mississippi, risked everything so that they could pull that lever. So if I hear anybody saying their vote does not matter, that it doesn't matter who we elect, read up on your history. It matters. We've got to get people to vote.
Read up on your history. It matters. If voting didn't matter, then it wouldn't matter who we elect. And it does matter who we elect. That is one of the most crucial aspects not just to the United States democracy, but to the world as a whole. The world's going to change next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, we're going to be talking about who the next president is. All right, y'all. We'll be right back. Mike Riley Now podcast. You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com. Yeah. Come on, Cameron. How come you're not dancing? What's up? We trying to dance to the music. Welcome back to the Mike Riley Now podcast. I'm your host, Mike Riley. I am here with Cameron Robson and my girl, Charlie Sandy. Bam. What's up now? Follow us on MikeRileyNow.com. We are into the second segment of our show, which is news of the week. There's so much news going on. I mean, all the stuff that's happening right now, from the church burning down in Mississippi to the guy in Iowa who shot those two troopers who was some sort of white nationalist, to the alt-right talking about they're going to do some voter suppression in specific states and start monitoring specific poll areas. How do we get to other types of news? But I'm going to try to stay away from the dramatic stuff and try to talk about something that's at least different from all this election stuff that's going on, because that's just everywhere. So the first thing is there are ghost forests are starting to grow from Florida to New Jersey as rising oceans pump salt water into coastal zones and wetlands. This is from Democratic Underground from Track, which was posted a couple days ago. It says a steady increase in sea levels is pushing salt water into U.S. wetlands, killing trees from Florida to as far north as New Jersey. Both with sea level projected to rise by as much as 6 feet this century, the destruction of coastal forests is expected to become a worsening problem worldwide. This is pretty crazy. This is something that we can definitely blame and contribute to climate change. And the interesting thing about this story, all these ghost forests that are starting to pop up around Florida's kind of built on this swamp, right? And when the sea levels start to rise, it's probably going to be one of the first places that go.
Absolutely.
And Marco Rubio and Rick Perry
does not believe
even climate
change.
Marco Rubio's a senator from Florida
who was running for president.
Yeah, what is wrong with these people? I hope Patrick Murphy kicks his ass. He's the one. he's the guy that's running against them. Shout out to Pat Murphy. He's a good guy. He believes in climate change, and they're actually trying to do something about it, like carbon emissions. But Marco Rubio's thing is, well, we don't want to devastate the economy just to fight climate change.
It's
China's
just the planet.
Yeah,
honestly,
it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's
blah, just blah, our blah. Home.
Right. It is a very big thing. But the rise of these ghost forests and these rising saltwater these rising sea levels is starting to get.
It should be a bit of a reality check for people.
Definitely the most dire
Hopefully.
concern. Right. All right. The next story, I talked about this a little earlier about Prop 61, which is the big pharma prop. Now, this is for all my California residents. California Prop 61 is the Drug Price Standards Initiative. And it pretty much mandates that any California state agency that provides funding for prescription drugs can't pay more than the lowest price paid for the same drugs by the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. So in other words, when we buy our drugs, we have to buy them at the same price the veterans buy them for at the VA. Now, the VA is a screwed up place. Don't get me wrong. It needs a lot of reform, but they can get their drugs at a better price than we have to pay for them. And of course, the pharmaceutical companies hate that. But this is our first step to actually battling the pharmaceutical companies, because they charge outrageous prices for things that keep people alive. I mean, it's a racket. I was telling somebody the other day, I had a friend who was infected with HIV, and he died. He let himself die. He said because he got tired of taking the pills. It was too expensive. This whole notion of if you want to stay alive, you gotta go broke to do it. I mean, geez. I mean, so Bernie Sanders and Jerry Brown and Barack Obama and all those big progressives have come out and said to vote yes on 61. So if you live in California, that is something to think about coming up this election day, coming up this Tuesday. All right. So, and this is a story I found here at bragblog.com. So you can look it up. Look up all of your down ballot initiatives, especially the big propositions. Obviously, we'll talk about them next week on the next show after the election. And we'll tell you which ones won and which ones didn't. And I'll go ahead and post all these links up too on the website on MikeRileyNow.com. And I'll create like a section, story section or something like that. So that way you guys can check out the links. So next story. This one's actually according to Trib Live. Uber's self-driving Volvos hit Pittsburgh streets. Uber has rolled out its latest fleet of self-driving cars on Pittsburgh streets. A self-driving Volvo was spotted last week in Oakland. Uber said it's actively testing the Volvos as part of its self-driving pilot in Pittsburgh. In September, Uber debuted a fleet of self-driving Ford Fusions in Pittsburgh. And, you know, just not too long ago, they had their self-driving cars all throughout Philly, right? You know, it's funny because a lot of people talk about the share economy, you know, how it's a big thing. Not to bust anybody's bubble, but in 10 years, there aren't going to be, you know, Uber drivers, y'all going to be out of a job. Same thing with truck drivers and stuff like that. You know, self-driving cars are going to be like a thing of the future, right? And I think about this in a way because it's like, what's going to happen to all those people who make a living driving?
Yeah.
You know,
it's
like
a good percentage of
truck drivers,
people.
and yeah, I mean, they're going to cut them out for sure if cars can drive themselves. I know for me though, self-driving cars might be cool because now people might be able to drink and actually drive.
Yeah.
You know, they'll be able to take a sip of something on their way home without having to worry about getting pulled over. Maybe it'll cause less accidents.
That would be huge.
Yeah,
Less
that would be a big thing.
drunk driving accidents.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm kind of one of those sticklers that isn't quite sure if they trust those self-driving cars.
Well, no, you should never buy the first version of anything that comes out.
Never, no, seriously.
It's definitely.
I am waiting till like.
Yeah, I'm waiting until
like iPhone 7 level kind of.
Yeah, even bigger than that.
I'm very like iffy about that. It's just like it doesn't seem right to me.
I'm for it in the sense that I don't have a driver's license yet, and I'm too lazy to get one, and would like a self-driving car.
What's gonna happen then? Like what? Like about driver's license and stuff? Are you still gonna need one?
Yeah.
I don't know,
yeah,
man.
obviously they're gonna change the
also
laws
confusing.
are gonna have to change. Well, you know, when technology changes, things change. I mean, you know, think about when cell phones came out and the social media technology came out. They had to start building laws around that. You know, when they started coming out with, you know, more advanced weapons, they had to start building laws around that. Well, kind of, you know, and stuff like that. So I'm sure that they're gonna, and that's why they can't just roll them out anyway, because there's a lot of regulation on it. So. But we'll see. But the future is coming soon. You know, your grandkids are going to be saying to you, I can't believe you guys used to drive your own cars.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's so weird.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird one. All right. And we got time for one more. This story comes from Space News. The industry committee to start working on human spaceflight is starting to work on human spaceflight safety standards. With the Federal Aviation Administration restricted from developing safety regulations for people flying on commercial human spaceflight, an industry standards organization is moving ahead with plans to establish a committee to develop a voluntary set of standards. So essentially what they're saying, because, you know, spaceflight is starting to become like this new thing. You know, all these private companies are developing these things that will be able to take you out into Earth's orbit and circle you around. You know, spaceflight's going to be a thing in the future if we can get our minds wrapped around it. And the government doesn't regulate space now, does it? Right? Right.
They might think they do.
Right, like the government regulates Earth, but you can't regulate space. Yeah. Right? You can't tell me what I can and cannot do in space, right?
It's lawless territory.
Yeah, that's going to be like the new frontier out there, you know, developing all these space laws. So because of that, since the FAA can't really regulate it, all these, basically what this is saying, and these special committees are getting together to develop a voluntary set of standards. It says this will allow the industry to use a 10-year-old process to produce consensus standards. The new committee will develop standards and related roadmaps to address activities such as human spaceflight, occupant safety standards, spaceports, and space traffic management. Space traffic management. Man.
Can't imagine having enough stuff that there would be traffic.
I mean, do you think we're going to get... I mean, how far off do you think we're at from, like, being so advanced in our technology to the point where we're just flying out in space pretty soon?
I always have moments where I think we're incredibly close and moments I think I'll never see it. You know, I think it all depends on how risky we are and how but I guess how ballsy we are, how much we're willing to risk for the discovery, and how much we're willing to sacrifice in terms of safety and in terms of all that in the name of science, in the name of discovery.
I mean, I think that would be so cool to just be able to get out and push out into space. I mean, that would be just amazing. But the thing about it is like, I think I'm with you on that, Charlie. I think we're close. And then I turn on the TV and I see Donald Trump is the Republican nominee for president.
And I think, oh my God, we're light years off.
Yeah, we're not getting...
We're going backwards.
I think if the aliens came here, they'd be like,
shit, we're leaving.
I mean, I guess if Donald Trump becomes president, we don't really have to worry about alien invasion anymore because they're not really
he will
gonna
build a
wanna be
wall around the Earth and we will be safe.
Maybe they can develop a spaceship so we can all get out of here.
Oh my God, dude, they would arrive and they'd be like, oh no, there's no intelligent life left.
We'll be right back, y'all. You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com. All right, y'all, and welcome back to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. I am your host, Mike Riley. I am here with my girl, Cameron Robson, and my girl, Charlie Sandy, and Brooke over there in the corner. Welcome back to the show, and we are pouring water. I don't know if I heard that or not.
Sorry, guys, I'm dehydrated.
What are you talking about? You don't need water to survive. What the hell? Girl, please. That's hilarious. Welcome back to the show, yeah. Make sure that you subscribe, log on to MikeRileyNow.com, do all that cool stuff. So welcome to the third segment of the show, which is the economics portion. We definitely try to get into our economics here. We're going to try to be broadcasting live pretty soon here, probably in the next couple of weeks. We're just trying to work out all the logistics. You should be able to check us out on Facebook Live and on Periscope. And also, too, you should be able to call in via Skype. And I know we'll have it set up so if you want to call into the show and you want to comment on anything, we'll be taking calls. So make sure you tell all your friends and whatnot. And we do this every Thursday night. So we'll see if we can make that happen here in the next couple of weeks. I will keep everybody posted. And like I said, I'll be posting up updates on the website. So, so we got this election coming up here on Tuesday. It's scary. And, we talked about how important it is to vote. But now we're going to kind of dig into why it's so important to vote and why it's and what actually we're voting for, right? So from an economic standpoint, I always kind of look at things from the perspective of economics, and especially especially working on a large scale, macroeconomics, right? Is kind of the grease and the building blocks behind a society, so to speak. I mean, it's almost one of the main reasons we have government, right, is because of commerce. Now, when it comes to how to, I guess, properly disperse money within within a society in order to sustain a good market, there comes a conversation between spending and investing, right? So, what's spending money? Right. So spending money really is like buying alcohol, right?
Yeah, you can live without it.
Exactly. You spend money on liquor, you put it in your body, and then 30 minutes later you're peeing it out, right?
Yeah.
An investment is more like buying a nice suit for work or for an interview, or buying a computer, or investing in a business, something that's going to end up paying off over time. Right? In the United States of America, we spend more than we actually invest, right? When every year the federal government passes a spending budget, and they talk about what all the money that they make from taxes and everything else, all the way the United States of America makes money, what they're going to disperse and spend that money to. This is why the government always gets shut down, right? It's because Republicans and Democrats can't agree on where to disperse the money.
Yeah.
Republicans like spending money on military. They think that's the best way to disperse our dollars. So think about every single time you pay taxes, 50 cents of your dollars that you pay goes towards the military. Now think about it from a spending standpoint. If we spend $200 million on a bomb, right, that goes somewhere, blows somebody up, kills a bunch of people, you're not getting a return on that investment because it blows up and then nothing happens. It evaporates.
Yeah.
Well, only thing you get in return is collateral damage, which you create more terrorists.
And the more you think about it, your money killed somebody.
Yeah, your money essentially killed somebody. Right. So that's not wise spending. Now, what do Democrats, not all of them, now I'm not saying that all Democrats are good because there's some dirty ass ones out there. But for the most part, most of that money goes to invest back within our society. And one of the biggest investments we can make is in our intellectual infrastructure, our people, the young people, right? And kind of what I'm getting at here is really our education, our students.
That would be us. Hi.
Yeah, that would be my girls right here. You know what we cut and slash so much from our education budgets and from things that actually are going to have a return on investment. I mean, think about it. If you invest in education, over time you're going to get, a more adequate society that's more suited to carry on and to be able to function and build a functioning society and to be able to compete within the market and everything else. But if not, then you're not going to have that. And really one of the biggest scares about this is our student loan debt crisis that we have right now. Our student loan debt crisis is out of control. We do not invest in our students. We do not invest in our intellectual infrastructure in this country. We pretty much tell people, well, first of all, you can look at it from this perspective, right? It's kind of a have and have not type of thing. So Elizabeth Warren said it best. She said there's a big difference between somebody who they can go to a school, they can afford to pay for it, and when they graduate, they don't have any debt. They can borrow money from their parents. They can
borrow a small loan of $1 million
or something from somewhere and not have to worry about debt. That's a huge difference from somebody when they graduate. They graduate with $150,000 worth of debt that they're stuck in for the rest of their life. Pretty much. And like I said, there are some dirty Democrats out there. Now, I love Joe Biden to death. He's one of my favorite MFs of all time. But Joe Biden did sign into law that people can't claim bankruptcy on their student loans. You can pretty much claim bankruptcy on just about anything in this country to wipe clean your debts to start over, except for your student loans.
Ridiculous.
Americans owe nearly $1.3 trillion in student loan debt, spread out among 44 million borrowers. So the average class of 2016 graduate has $37,172 in student loan debt. And that's a pretty scary statistic, and that's not good for our economy at all. Because what happens when a bunch of people have a bunch of debt they can't pay off, or they're not allowed to pay off? You create a debt bubble. And we all know what happens when bubbles are created.
Bubbles explode.
Bubbles explode.
They kill us all.
They kill us all. It's funny. I always ask people. A lot of people know about like the big historical crashes that have happened throughout history, but most people don't really know what causes them, right? I mean, you ask the average American, what caused the Great Depression?
War.
like nobody really knows. Like, I don't know what caused the Great Depression. Something about the stock market crashed, right? Or something like that, right? But a lot of people don't know that it was because of the same thing. It was because of a credit bubble that busted, that burst. Same thing with the housing market in 2008, right? That was a housing market bubble that burst. We right now have a student loan debt bubble that is going to explode. And that's not good.
And it seems like the only reason people understand it if there's really like a movie made about it. Because the only reason I understand the housing market is because of The Big Short.
Yeah.
That's... Granted, it was interesting, but it's not necessarily the most reliable place to find your information.
No.
It's like nobody knows what's going on.
Well, we definitely need education reform to get on top of kind of like what we're talking about in the student loan debt thing. I mean, that's the reason why I think, in my personal opinion, public schools need to stay public because the people should have a say-so in the curriculum. You know, Donald Trump talks about getting rid of Common Core, which to me is just stupid. First of all, Common Core is set up by the states. It's not like a nationally, federally mandated thing. Second of all, Common Core pretty much just states that there are a common set of standards that students, you know, in math, in English, and you know, and in science, which is something that we all know our friends can't stand, and other things, you know, which is a basic curriculum. So why would we want to get rid of Common Core? I don't personally understand that at all. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I mean, what do you guys? I see you pointing at her, but
I mean, my previous high school before I came to the one where I met Cameron, it was
She's the best.
Oh
She's
yeah,
got to hang out with me.
Sure, keep saying that. But it was actually a Common Core school. And it had a lot of perks, but it also had a lot of downfalls in it as well. It's a flawed system. I will admit that there are some subjects that should not become Common Core. I had math where I was no longer learning algebra and geometry. I was learning enhanced math 1 and enhanced math 2.
Oh, I see.
And it's a completely flawed system, but every system starts out flawed, but I think it has a potential that, if done correctly, and refined, will be beneficial.
Right, absolutely. And I agree that, you know, there are so many parts of our education system that are so screwed up as far as curriculum, as far as what students are learning. I mean, I personally think we should get rid of homework altogether.
Yes.
You know, I've seen
I'm one of those people that's
Right.
totally against like standardized testing and
Standardized
stuff like
testing.
hate the stuff.
If you get the opportunity, I don't know if many of you out there who are listening have had the opportunity to see Michael Moore's documentary "Where to Invade Next."
Oh, love it.
I highly recommend it.
fantastic.
I highly recommend it. He goes to all these different countries and it shows you how it's done. And I forget which country he's in. I believe it's like France or something like that. But they've eliminated homework for the students, and the students excel so much more. Not to mention they get to go to school for free when they're ready to go to university.
Where's the constant anxiety in France? I don't really see it.
I have no
that's
idea.
not
No, you drink wine and smoke a cigarette and everything is fine.
I mean, it's very interesting when you look at our school systems. It's like, as you go farther east, there's more and more people diagnosed with ADHD because we're ignoring the fact that our system is producing people that have all this anxiety around school, but they're just writing it off as ADHD and giving them this prescription, and they're like, there you go, like, you won't be a problem to us anymore. But It's like, if you literally look at a diagram, as you go further east towards, like, New York and stuff, there's an influx in people with ADHD.
Is that really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like there's literally an influx where it just, as you go farther east.
That is
Like,
something.
that's not like that's not realistic in that being a real thing. That it obviously has something to do with the schooling, because it's all in students in like high school and middle school. Like, it's not in elementary school or something. It's
Right.
high school and middle school being diagnosed with ADHD.
Right. Yeah, and that's a whole nother conversation within itself. And I agree. You know, we're like one of the only countries one of the only developed countries in the world that uses things like Adderall and methamphetamines to try to fix it. I mean, these things are banned in most European countries, which is hilarious.
For a reason.
Let's
But,
all move to Europe.
But
Come back with me, guys. No, don't. Brexit happened.
Oh, yeah, Brexit. But back to the student loan thing. According to Market Watch, excuse me, this is an article by Jillian Berman. It says it's getting harder and harder to graduate college without taking on student loans. Nearly 70% of bachelor degree recipients leave school with debt, according to the White House, and that could have major consequences for the economy. Research indicates that $1.2 trillion in student loan debt may be preventing Americans from making the kind of big purchases that drive economic growth, like houses and cars, and reaching other milestones, such as having the ability to save for retirement or move out of mom and dad's basement. And as many of you know, millennials are literally notoriously known for, being everybody got pissed off at Hillary Clinton for calling them basement dwellers, in which it wasn't a diss. She was pretty much saying that because of these student loan problems, because of the things that we're facing with our debt system. That's hurting it's hurting our economy. It's bringing our economy down. When people don't have the money to make purchases or to do things, it slows down economic growth. And why do we charge people to go to school? To get a higher education. So I guess the question is, what's the solution to this student debt problem? What should we do? Because sooner or later, it's really going to bring down our economy.
Well, I think that education is a right, and I think just as it is a right for all of us to be educated to high school, it should be a right for all of us to be able to receive a higher education if we so choose, free of debt. You know, I mean, what if someone can't afford to pay for college because their parents were in so much student debt that they could not afford to take their children there? It's a cycle that will never be stopped unless we can get rid of this ridiculous notion that a student must pay to be educated in this world.
I mean, Charlie, you hit it on the head. I mean, how is it that K through 12 is free, but once you get to college, it's like, oh, well, you're on your own?
Especially when it's now, for almost any job, a requirement to have some sort of college degree.
Exactly.
Yes, it's no longer a choice to have a higher education. It's, would you like a job or not?
Yeah, pretty much.
And it makes sense, or in the past it made sense because not everyone needed one. It was simply, it was a choice. You could do it if you wanted to, but like you could still have a career and a livable life. Like, because you can still have a life without a college education.
Right.
Just doesn't mean it's going to be a livable one. It's not going to be one that you love or like, period.
And it's funny because the governor of Tennessee, Bill Haslam, who happens to be a Republican, passed a statewide initiative where people can go to school for free for 2 years. And it worked. That's why Barack Obama wanted to do it so bad. All right, y'all. We want to thank you so much for joining us. This is the Mike Riley Now podcast. God bless Charlie. God bless Cameron. God bless Brooke. God bless all of you too. Thank you so much for listening. And please remember that, to quote a great scholar, democracy is not a spectator sport, y'all. We are all in this together. Please get out there. Please get involved. Please vote this Tuesday. It is so important. Please get out there and vote. Shoot me any questions if you have any questions on where to vote and everything else like that. And we will see y'all next week when we have a new president. All right, y'all. Cheers. Peace. You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com.